Good morning and welcome to this webinar that we're running for our MOTCleanse product. It's actually two products in one, which we'll explain as we go through. Anyone that's registered for this is entitled to a free MOT health check. So we'll explain a bit more about that later on. You'll understand what you're going to get for that. But more importantly, we'll run through the main product. So I'll start off just by running through what it's all about, and then we'll give you a live demo as well, just to show you how it could work for you guys. And then we'll do a bit of Q&A at the end. So just to give you, if you've not used this webinar functionality before, there is a Q&A and also a chat function. We largely don't use the chat unless you've got an issue. Maybe you can't see the screen or whatever, then you can just fire a message in that. But my colleague Ian is on the chat, so he can have a look. Can keep an eye on that for us. The Q&A function we do use though. You can ask questions via that as we go through, or what we tend to do, to be honest, is leave the questions until the end, just probably because we're going to cover most of them anyway. And then at the very end we'll have a few minutes, 5 minutes or whatever, just to run through any questions that people might have. Other than that, we're looking probably to take about 20 minutes, so it's not a long webinar at all. Perfect. Right, so let's just get started. We've got a few slides just to explain everything, then like I say, we'll do a live demonstration as well. So what we're going to run through, we'll talk about a little bit about the fact that our status as a DVLA and DVSA data partner. We'll talk about what MOTCleanse is and the different versions of it. Why we feel it's really important, some of the feedback we've had and stats and things like that, and then like I say, I'll show you how it works, and then we'll finish off with the Q&A. Okay, so we are one of only 10 bulk data partners of the DVLA and DVSA in the UK. There's others like Equifax, Experian, CAP HBI, but we are unique in that we're the only after-sales solutions provider that actually buys the data bulk from the DVLA. No other competitor of ours does this. So like I said, we're in a unique position to be able to provide the MOTCleanse product. What it means is we buy the bulk data directly from DVLA. That gives us direct access to things like, as you see, MOT dates, MOT history, things like registration dates, and then other things like keeper changes, scrappage. There's about 50 different data points, but the ones you're looking at right now are the important ones. As well as the bulk data, we also have a very detailed API, which lets us look up live MOT data as well on a one-by-one basis. But we can look at massive data sets, massive DMS data sets in one go, or look at records on a granular basis. That's what having that status really means, and that's what drives the MOTCleanse product. So what is MOTCleanse in itself, and how does it work? So we actually have two versions of MOTCleanse. We have a bulk cleanse, which a lot of dealers in the industry will be used to. Bulk cleanse is something that our competitors like Equifax and Experian do offer. What that essentially is it's taking one data extract from the DMS, comparing that against the DVLA and DVSA data, looking for things like keeper changes, scrappage, MOT dates, missing or incorrect, all of those things, and then re-importing them back into the DMS, which is great. It helps clean the database. The problem with it is that it starts going out of date the moment you've done it. So you can get it done, but straight away there's processes in every dealer that causes MOT dates to go wrong, and we'll talk a little bit more about those when we look at some actual data. To accompany that, we also have our daily cleanse module. So imagine you've just done a bulk cleanse and you've just re-imported the data. What you really want is to make sure that even though people are probably in the business of going to be putting the MOT dates wrong again, that we are constantly checking that. And so the daily cleanse module does that. As you can see, it's a perpetual daily check. So it's constantly scanning different different record changes and things like that, and I'll explain a little bit more about those shortly. But it's doing the same checks the bulk cleanse is doing. It's looking at MOT data, keeper changes, scrappage. We has a dedicated management console where you can actually analyze the data. And up until recently, it was a case of using that console, but then still having to manually update the DMS, which is great, but it's labor intensive, and dealers tend to have someone dedicated to that, at least as a task every day. What we've just gone live with a few months ago is actually we're now able to write back into the DMS. We started with CDK, so we're a CDK global approved partner, and we have that live now with CDK's Rev 8 DMS. Drive is not far behind, so that will be available shortly. A lot of requests for that to be available, and we are working towards having it available with other DMS providers as well. But like I say, CDK Rev 8 is where it started, and I'll show you how that integration works quite shortly as well. So why is it needed? Some of the stats, I'll run through with you now, but what we find whenever we do a bulk cleanse is there's a very high error rate. We've seen it as high as 75% incorrect MOT dates, which sounds unrealistic, but truly that is what we've seen in some dealer DMS systems. On average, around about 52% of live vehicle records, and what we mean by live vehicle record is one you've seen in the last few, 2 or 3 years, they either have an incorrect date or a missing date in the DMS, which is quite staggering, really. We've done many bulk cleanses now, and that is a consistent figure. Quite often you find a dealer's DMS will be as good as 30% incorrect, but still significantly high. So when you break that down, around about 15% of MOT dates are incorrect by up to 3 months. So it's not that significant, because the big one is actually 40% of MOT dates are incorrect by more than 6 months. So that means they're out of date by more than 6 months, which is significant. It means, what that really means is you're probably going to be missing a lot of MOT opportunity, and you're just either not going to contact the customers at all, or you're going to contact them when it's too late. And like I say, you're just not going to drive that business into your workshop. What we also find when we do a data cleanse is around about 8% of vehicles are identified as having a change of owner, or keep a change since the last visit. So you might be spending a lot of money on marketing, trying to reach those customers. With contact center or automated reminders might be going out, and those customers don't even own the vehicle anymore, and so you're wasting a lot of marketing spend and resource time on customers that that you're never going to get them back in with that vehicle. Before we go into the live demo, I just want to run through a couple of tools that we can show you. So this one's on our website. So what you can actually do is navigate to our website, and I'm going to share this presentation after the webinar with everyone that's joined. You can actually navigate there. You can put in the number of live records you have in your DMS. So typical DMS has about 10,000 records, and you can play about with the numbers. But we're working on an incorrect MOT date or missing MOT date average of about 40%. And then the conversion of those of 25%, you can start to see some of the numbers. If you charge £45 for an MOT, you can see some of the numbers of what you could be missing out on. Expected gross margin, based on the revenue that comes in from an MOT across a year, is around about £58,000 in lost revenue per dealer. If you're a multi-dealer franchise, then you could be missing out on quite a significant amount of money just because your MOT dates are either missing or incorrect. Now, when it comes to daily cleanse, there's a number of trigger points. Now, the first, we actually break these down into 3 categories. The first one being the CRM system, or follow-up system as it's currently called. So what we do there is every time we import data into our CRM system, the MOTCleanse module will actually cross-reference the data that's about to be imported with the DVSA data, and actually look for owner changes, MOT dates being incorrect, and it will flag them immediately, and in some cases stop the record from being imported if there's been an owner change, or it can, if the MOT date's wrong, it will flag that and allow it to be corrected. Quite a lot of contact centers do this manually. Now, one of the big problems of doing it at the point of record import is that actually it could be too late already. So we do need to be having other measures in place to make sure that we get data brought into the CRM system at the right time. It's great to check it anyway when it is imported, but the other measures we need are the following two. So one is every time a job card is invoiced, what we shouldn't be doing is trusting service advisors or workshop controllers, anyone else who might be creating an invoice to be putting the correct MOT data in, because quite often we find it's not happening. And I'll show you some evidence of that in a minute on the MOTCleanse module. But what we do is, all records are checked after 2 weeks of having an invoice. We log where we can which user it was that made the error, and we'll flag the MOT date in the module you'll see in a minute. Likewise, if a record is created or updated, now that could be a vehicle sale, it could be a new customer, it could just be a customer that's had the record amended. Again, we'll check that when it's been created or amended, and make sure that we have that data correct, so that when the time does come around for the MOT to be reminded that we are going to contact the customer at the right time. Again, we'll try and log users where possible. We'll show you that in a moment of how that works. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll switch to the live system and just show you. I've got a couple of dealers lined up. Both of them have given us permission to use their systems to show you the demonstration. So the first one is a dealer that has the CDK Drive DMS. Now, like I say, that hasn't quite gone live yet with the rights back. So this dealer is using our DMS integration on a read-only basis. What they're doing is they're actually checking the data and updating it manually at the moment. Although it's still, if you do it regularly, it's not a laborious process. It just depends on how big your dealer group is. You can see all our modules down the left-hand side. The MOTCleanse module is the one we're going to be looking at. Before I do that, I just want to very quickly show you the type of data we get back from the DVLA. So I'll just use a registration there, do a quick DVLA search. Now what it does, it actually brings back this granular detail, sorry. I mentioned before there's about 50 data points that we can actually check. We don't use all of them on a regular basis. We use these ones here. So we have vehicle details, we have data in things such as the date registered, number of owners, current owner start, so that's a keeper change, things like cherished transfers, vehicles being scrapped and things like that. So we have that level of detail there. Further down though, you can see we also get detailed MOT data. Now this goes right down to the detail of when an MOT was last done, the expiry date, and also any advisories on previous visits. So that's the kind of data detail we're getting back from the DVLA and the DVSA. So let's head over to the MOTCleanse module. So this dealer has, like I said, they've allowed us to use it. They haven't processed the MOTCleanse module today. I asked them not to, just so I can show you how it works. But they've got 19 records that need some attention. Now, this is a dealer that is really good with data. They have some really good processes in place to make sure that they keep on top of data being correct. But like I said before, there's just so many processes in the business, and we can't be on top of them all the time. So we need to make sure that we're checking this. So let's go into the MOTCleanse module, load that live data. So this is what we're looking at in terms of what needs to be processed. So I'll just zoom in a little bit, just so you can see a bit better exactly what we're looking at. Okay, so as I mentioned before, there was various trigger points. So there's where a job card has been invoiced, that's one check. So you can see on this particular record, I'm just going to run you through in detail what we're looking at here. So we can see which location it was, the date of the check, the registration date, and the VIN date. So we actually check both. We cross-reference both of those in case it's a cherished plate and maybe it's just been transferred from one vehicle to another. So we can even look at two vehicles on one record as well. We check the DMS reg date, so you can see all of these are correct so far on the screen. And then most importantly, the DMS MOT date. So what we're looking at here is that on this first record is that the date in the DMS is the 13th of September 2020, and the actual date against the DVSA is the 26th of September. So not too much of a difference there, as you can see. And but so we're not, we're 2 weeks out of date, but what's actually happened here is this dealer's invoiced probably a service or an MOT that's been in. The MOT date's been updated automatically by the DMS, and for some reason the wrong date's gone in. So it's 2 weeks out. Now, what we can actually do here is we can show what date we suggest, and this is parameterized by the dealer, so they can actually put in the next MOT date to be suggested, or the date that it was due this time round. So it depends on how your CRM system is predicting the next date, but we can do it either way. Now, what this is done without the right back switched on. So what this dealer has to do is log into the DMS and have the two screens open, correct the date in the MOT in the DMS, and then click done here. So I'm not going to do it because this is a live and working system, but if I was to, and I didn't update the DMS date, tomorrow this record is going to come back into this module here, because it's going to check it again and it's going to flag the fact that it hasn't been updated. So a user can't just run through here and click done and not actually change the DMS MOT date. If we look at a couple more records, you can see this one here has actually had a record amended or created by a user. So it's a similar sort of information. It gives you the locations, the vehicle data. It's also showing us whether the MOT date's incorrect. And what you can notice on this one is that actually the name of the username of the user who has changed the record, and it's telling us in granular detail exactly what's been changed and why it's incorrect. Moving further down, this particular one here is the follow-up management. So this is where a record's been imported into follow-up. Again, we've done some checks. If I pick out one here, for this record along this row, number 5, what we can see is the DMS MOT date is actually the 3rd of November 2019. The actual MOT date is the 6th of January 2020. So that's quite a bit different. This one down here, we can see actually that says November, this one says September, and then moving further down, there's no date in the DMS altogether, so it's actually missing. Now, this is what we see quite often when we first turn this module on. So we end up with a lot of missing dates. And what that really means is that no CRM activity is going to happen for that record ever until a date is put in, or if the customer comes in for an MOT and it's then updated. So what we really need to be doing is updating the DMS with the correct date. And that's really important. What I suspect has happened here is this is actually the record that's been created. It's been created with no MOT date by possibly a service advisor, and that's just now nothing's going to happen with it. So we need to make sure that someone's using the system and updating the DMS on a regular basis. We often see this happen. The two most common trigger points are new records being created and in after sales, and also vehicle sales as well. Either get the incorrect MOT date entered into the system, typically on a used vehicle sale, or just no MOT date put in at all. So it's because record creation is still a very manual process across the dealership. So that is, like I said, that's the system, how it runs when you've got a read-only mechanism coming from the DMS. What I want to do is just quickly switch to a different dealer. So again, we have permission from this dealer to show you their system. Now, what you'll notice straight away is on their MOTCleanse module, there are nothing to be updated. And the reason for this is this dealer is actually using CDK's Rev8 DMS. If I just choose the records from yesterday, for example, hit search. So these are all the completed records. Now, what this dealer is actually has switched on is the automated write back functionality. So essentially, when we first switch on the write back, you don't have to have the automated functionality. You can have it as we were just looking at the previous dealer. So when you click the done button down the right hand side, that will actually write it back there and then. So you can sanity check each record before you do that, and you have more control. This particular dealer did that for a while, but they got to a point where they found that every day they were just clicking done all the way down the list because they were trusting the data. And you know, they eventually just switched it on so it's automated. So as you can see, I was talking before about the fact we can actually check things where there's like 2 vehicle records, 2 VIN data, things like that. This particular DMS has got missing VIN records here, so we can inject that VIN back into the record automatically. The DMS reg date is empty. That one DMS reg date is incorrect. There's various other checks that have happened here, and all the time is explaining what's actually going on. Now, you can also see here there's quite a few owner changes. So what we're looking at here is the last visit was on the 3rd of December 2018, and the DVLA owner change date for the keeper record change is actually since that date. So that is where we can unlink the target record from the vehicle. And also, you know, we can provide exception reports. We can automatically make that happen. These are all parameterized, so you don't have to unlink the vehicle record if you don't want to. You can just update the MOT record if you still want the vehicle to be linked to the customer. But you know, it's doing all of these checks all at once. So a couple of you may have noticed that. So let me find a record where it's happened. Yeah. So if I pick this record 5 along here, we've got the DMS MOT date was set as the 5th of November 2019, but the DVSA MOT date is actually the 27th of September 2020. However, what it's actually done, when it's written the date back to the DMS, it's actually kept it as 27th of September 2019. So the reason it does that is because some CRM systems and DMS systems actually work on the last visit, the last MOT due date, not the next MOT due date. It just depends on which record you're updating and how you're using that record field. The point is the system can cope with updating it either way, depending on how you've got your maintenance reminders set up. You know, there's various fields in different DMS systems, and different dealers use those fields differently. So, you know, the system, when we actually configure it, can be configured either way. If you want your next MOT date to always be in the future, that's fine. We can change the year to be in the future. Or for this dealer here, you can see that, you know, the DMS MOT date was set to November 17, so that's the last time they've seen the customer for an MOT, even though it's due in 2020. They keep it at 2017, so that the CRM system knows that actually it's 3 years since we saw this customer for an MOT. Therefore, what we're actually going to do is send them a different offer. You know, when we actually send them a reminder through our follow-up CRM system. Great, thanks very much.